Hey everybody, I am coming to you on Wednesday night to actually enlist your aid in trying to fix a problem that I see with your Module 3 answers. Normally, and I guess I should say I know most of you are already working in Module 5 and some of you may also be still answering your classmates tonight in Module 4. But I have been grading Module 3 for a very long time. And the reason it is taking me so long is because a lot of you seem to have not understood the assignment or possibly not read the material. It's really hard for me to know. But whatever it is, I feel really compelled, particularly for Module 3, to come and see if I can help you with this subject matter. All the subject matter is important, but Module 3, where we talk about the role of engaging volunteers around the organization's mission, is probably the most important lesson as a building block for everything else. And I say that, I put this module up front, right? It's like week 3. And the reason for that is that everything flows from making sure that your volunteer engagement strategy is intentionally aligned with your mission. And I am just not seeing that in most of your answers. And I have been spending an enormous amount of time basically trying to write out what it is that I want you to learn from this. And then I just realized there are so many of you that seem to have not grasped the concept that I needed to go back and do a couple things. So the first thing I did was go to last year's class, Module 3, and see if they had the same problem with this assignment, and they did not. But I did notice something very different about the way that last year's class proceeded with this particular assignment, and I think this may be part of the reason. So I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to talk a little bit about the role of the mission and why it is critically important to align your volunteer strategy with the mission. And then I'm going to invite you to go back and redo your assignments. And in fact, I'm going to go back and invite you to find a partner in your cohort and do it together. So let me tell you why. The thing that I noticed that happened differently last semester was that people chose to work with partners. If you recall, and you might not recall, but if you were to go read back through your Module 3 assignment, you would see that I gave you the option to work with a partner. In your particular class, so far, nobody has opted to work with a partner. If anybody opted to work together, I haven't seen their work yet, but most of you opted to work on your own. In the little 5-minute video I gave you about how to improve your points, I think one of the things that I mentioned was the need to go back and check the assignment to make sure that you did it right. I think one of the things that happens when we work together with someone is that basically the way that people work through something together is, they read through it the first time, but then they go to the first question. They say, okay, the first thing we need to answer is blah, blah, blah. And they talk it out and they come up with the answer for that question. And then they go back and they read, okay, the next thing we have to do is blah, blah, blah. And because they're working together, they're just sort of more methodical together. And I've seen this in the classroom a whole lot of times. Obviously, I can't see what people do when they are working in Cyberland or, if you're meeting off campus because you live near each other or whatever. But I think that that is the difference. I looked at last semester's work and they had sort of ploddingly done all of the things. I think the other thing is that when you know you have to work with a partner, you're going to be much more aware of being prepared to do the assignment, which means reading or watching the videos, or I don't remember exactly what I assigned for Module 3 off the top of my head right now, and I don't have it open. But I think that when people get together to work, they are more, they prepare better. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to vacate all of the points from those of you who had wrong answers. I mean, just terribly wrong answers. And I'm going to let you go back in with a partner and redo that. I know it's going to mean a little bit of additional work that you probably don't want to do, but this Module 3 is critically important building block to the entire rest of the semester. So let me tell you why. Okay, so many organizations are not particularly strategic about how they use volunteers. Now, why that is, I'm not sure, but it could just be that only in the last 10 years have we begun graduating a lot of management types through a nonprofit degree program, and the people who came before probably didn't have any real training in volunteer management, and there wasn't a lot of writing about it. It's just that people showed up to help, and people who had been helping for a while began taking on the role of coordinating volunteers and telling them what to do and orienting them and training them and so forth. And I really just think that it's only recently that we have really stopped to think about best practices here. But this is so critical. So think about it like this. Most organizations, many organizations, except the very big, most sophisticated organizations, tend to have one of 2 or 3 different kinds of ways of dealing with volunteers. One is people say, oh, I really love what you're doing. Your cause is so important. I'd really like to help. And the organization says, you know, just come on down. Just let us know when you can come. Just come on down and we would love to have your help. But then they go back to their work. And when the day comes that the person comes on down, they really haven't spent any time thinking about what they want that volunteer to do. And so they run around and they try to find something to do that just needs to be done, something that's been sitting on the back burner, or worse, something that just people don't, you know, other people around who are working there just would prefer not to do, you know, like clean up the library and put all the books back in alphabetical order, or here's a bunch of old files that we haven't put in the filing cabinet yet. You know, stuff like that that just sits around. I've got a pile like that in my office, and if anybody likes that kind of work, please show up at UCent 534 and I'll let you file it. But most of the time, people don't like that. What they want to do is they want to be involved in something that uses their skills and is meaningful to achieving the mission. That's why they're even volunteering there. Sometimes they're volunteering because they have office hours to do, but still, if you had to choose between not office hours, CF, whatever they call them, I'm blanking on it because it's late, but you know, volunteer hours. A lot of you have a 200-hour volunteer hour requirement for your degrees. If you had to choose between doing those 200 hours, filing somebody's papers, or working with kids, or working with animals, or you know, even researching something that was important to serving a particular clientele, those might be things you would enjoy more than filing, right? So it's not all about volunteer enjoyment, but it is about engaging volunteers in a way that is most helpful to the organization, not just at the end of the day looking around for something that they can do, and also in a way that best utilizes and engages and impassions and enthuses the volunteers. So let's talk about the first side of that, which is how do we decide where we should put volunteers instead of filing? Well, the question that I asked you to consider on the assignment is, now you've looked at all this information, you have some very rich, information-rich websites, and you know, you've looked through all these things, you know what their mission is, and you're looking at their programs and you're thinking, what does it look like they aren't doing that much of? A really good place to check is, for example, an annual report, and they'll tell you that, you know, the number of people who are food insecure in Maricopa County is, I'm going to make this number up, 100,000. And the number that they were able to serve over the course of this last year was 2,452. All right, there's a lot of room between 100,000 food insecure and the 2,452 that they served. So to meet their mission, which might be that no one in Maricopa County has to go hungry, they've got a lot of stuff to do, right? They got a lot of people to reach out to. So when you're thinking about, if I had more resources, if I had more money, more time, more people, what would we be doing? Well, we would be looking for ways to get to those other, the rest of those other 97,000, however many hungry people that were out there. So what you would be doing is you would look at what they're already doing, and maybe what they're doing is they've got, you can see by looking at their programs that they've got 5 drivers who go around the city every day, and they connect with restaurants and grocery stores and food production places, and they pick up anything that is not used and they bring it back to the organization to repackage it and hand it out to people who are hungry. Well, what if they had 10 drivers? Okay, they would be able to double that number from the 2,400 that they're serving to 5,000 or so that they're serving. Maybe if they had 20 drivers, it would be even better, but let's just grow them gradually for our conversation's sake. By looking at the annual report where it tells you the level of hunger in Maricopa County and then the level that they're serving, you know that that's where they need work to fulfill their mission. It could be something else. It could be a no-kill shelter that has that rescues animals or takes in animals, and maybe their vision is a no-kill community. And we know that we're nowhere near being a no-kill community now. Actually, in Maricopa County, as it happens, I think we have drastically reduced the number of animals that we euthanize. But having said that, it was something like 7 million, and now it's something like 3 million. So from 3 million that are being euthanized to, let's put them up here, to 0 that are being euthanized, we have a lot of room to play. Since 0 is our mission, what could the organization do to increase the number of animals that are not euthanized? And maybe it's about building a bigger facility so that they can take in more animals from the kill shelters. And if that's the case, then you would ask yourself, how would volunteers be involved in building a bigger shelter? Well, I would suspect that there are many ways that they could be involved. First of all, there could be fundraising activities that volunteers would be in charge of. And, I remember an organization once where actually it was the Arizona State Parks Foundation, and we decided that we needed some relationships with the business community, both for legislative purposes, because to get approval for something at the legislature, you have to have all different stakeholder groups be on board, and we felt to get the business community on board, we were going to have to get some business partners and educate them, but also from the perspective of donors, businesses they don't give as often as individuals. We have far more individuals giving money, but the donations from the corporations tend to be much larger than an individual donation. So we were also hoping to build these relationships and get some donations out of them. So, starting a group of people who are invested in your cause, whether it was state parks in that case, or it has to do with rescues. And there's a lot of different businesses that might, that are run by people that might care about that. And there's also businesses that actually have to do with the animal community. There's veterinarians, and there are pet food stores, and PetSmart has its headquarters right here, and so on and so forth. So my point is, when you're thinking about how to use volunteers, the first question isn't how do we use volunteers? The first question is, what is our vision about our mission? You know, what is our vision for ourselves and the mission that we're trying to do, and how close are we to it, and what could we do in this space that we are far away from completing our mission and reaching our vision? What else would we need to do to grow it? So a lot of you did not do that. A lot of you envisioned things like moving into other states. And I think there was one of you for whom that made some sense to me, because I could see that they were already moving into some other states and that clearly that was part of their vision. But some of you, it was not part of their vision at all to move into other states, and they had not achieved or accomplished their vision right here in Arizona or wherever they were operating. And to increase the number of states they were in just to do it when they hadn't even successfully achieved their mission here has a lot of problems with it, just from a lot of perspectives, the ones that I just shared with you. And also to go out of state requires a change in your mission altogether, and that's kind of not the question that we're talking about here. Save that for our nonprofit organization management class. But anyway, I felt like most of you did not answer that question in keeping with the readings. And that led me, in fact, almost nobody mentioned the readings. And I am going to go through all of the assignments and mention in the writing, if I missed it, that you should refer to the readings. But I want you to realize that the readings and the assignments go together. They're a team. They were developed to go together. The materials that I give you to look at before you do the assignment are supposed to prep you for the assignment. So I'm actually personally wondering how many of you read the assignments, because I didn't see them reflected in either your thinking or your answers. And I didn't see them mentioned either. So I'm not sure if that's why that happened. But some of you may have very well read the materials and still just, for whatever reason, weren't sure about how to do this. And as I said, a lot of you actually just didn't answer some of the questions. Some of you did a great job of going through the website and letting me know what the mission and the vision was and what their programs were and what kind of staff they had, but then basically dropped the ball toward the end, which was the crux of the assignment. Is that was all background context for you to be able to look at that mission, look at where they say they are now, and figure out some roles for how they could get closer to achieving their mission. And a lot of you just pooped out at that point and said something like, well, they got a lot of room to grow, so they could definitely use some more volunteers. And so here we are at 18 minutes of my explaining this. And I hope that it's a little bit clearer now that what we're looking for is, here's what they aspire to do. This is their mission. This is their vision statement. This is what they aspire to do. This is where they are. And if you were not sure that you had the information about where they are compared to where they want to be, then I strongly suggest that you go back into the organization's website and poke around until you find it. It's why I urged you to find an information-rich website. I also highly recommend looking for annual reports. Many organizations have annual reports. If your organization doesn't have enough information or you can't find an annual report, then I suggest you switch organizations. Now, let me just say one more thing before I let you go. And that is that the reason that this is a building block is because success of your organization completely depends on aligning absolutely everything you do with the mission. The mission, in fact, is like a measuring tool so that you can ask yourself, is any move that we're thinking about making, or if we have 3 program choices, we're going to be looking which program choice is going to more successfully help us achieve the mission, or which grant opportunity is going to more helpfully get us to the mission, which here's a decision that we need to make about something. Deciding this way, will deciding it this way get us closer to the mission, or will deciding it that way get us closer to the mission? Every single thing that an organization does including how do you use volunteers. The first question is, how can we do this so that it will get us closer to achieving our mission? Because that is the purpose of your organization. Now, it just dawned on me that there may be some people in the class that do not know what a mission and a vision statement are, so let me just really quickly go over that. For those of you who are longtime NLM students, I apologize for this, but bear with me, and I'll get to the close of this and tell you exactly what to do next. But a vision statement is a statement about what the world would look like if we were successful with our mission. So a vision statement for an animal welfare organization might be a community where every animal is safe and cared for. Okay, so I just made that up. In order for every animal to be safe and cared for, there are probably lots of different things that an organization could do. So the organization mission statement says which of these things they do, which of the many possible things they do. Perhaps the organization's mission is to provide shelter to animals that don't have homes, and to prepare them for forever homes, and to recruit forever people to adopt them. That's a shelter and an organization that basically understands that sometimes dogs that have been through rough stuff need to have some socializing before they're ready to go to a forever home. And so this organization is going to take these dogs in, shelter them, give them the socialization they need, and when they're ready, they're going to find an adoptive family with the goal that they will eventually eradicate having, dogs that probably never eradicate it, but be able to take care of all the animals that need it in the community. So in other words, the vision statement is how the world looks if you do your job really well. The mission statement is the job that you do. All right, so those two things work in tandem. And every single thing your organization does should get you closer to your vision and should be in line with your mission. Okay, so what do I want you to do? I am going to go through and I'm just going to, what I'd really like you to do is find a partner and be more thoughtful and more careful. And if you haven't read the material, please go back and read it. And if you did read the material, think about how the material applies to the questions as you are answering them. So what I'm going to ask you to do is go find a partner, somebody inside your cohort. If you have an odd number in your cohort, it's fine. Just make one of your teams be of 3 people, and that's fine. And find some time to use a video conference, and do not do this by text. Absolutely, you need to do a video conference. You can use Zoom.us, or you can use Google Hangouts or Facebook video chat or Skype or whatever you all have and are comfortable with. But get together, read your material before you get there, and if you haven't already, if you have, that's not necessary obviously, and then one at a time go through the instructions in Module 3. You only need to use one set of material if you're working on, in other words, if there are 3 of you and you all did 3 separate ones, you might want to look at the 3 websites and decide which one has the most information or which one has an annual report or whatever that is. Just pick one. You don't have to do 3 times the work. You can just do one and do it really well. And be thinking about what is it they're trying to achieve, where are they really in trying to achieve it, and what could they do to get closer to that goal. Do not enlarge their mission. Do not add extra programs. Just see how they could use the programs they have in a better way through volunteer assistance to get to that goal. Once you do that, then I will come back and grade your work. So if you have any doubt about whether I want you to do that, just check your points. If I have removed your points, then I want you to go back and do that. And that's most of you, I'm afraid. If you have questions, please feel free to get to me. I think what I've learned from this is that I need to make it mandatory that people have partners. And I apologize because this is a learning experience for me too, to find that you guys need partners to do this particular task well. And I guess that's it. This is 25 minutes and I'm going to call it quits right now. Just get a hold of me if you have questions. And let's just say that I'm going to give you another week to get this done. And I will look at the assignments that are coming up and see if there's anything I can loosen up a little bit so that you won't all be struggling to catch up. That is my spiel, and I will see you on Blackboard, or Canvas, sorry.